Go and see where the stream is at. Have a look on the official channel. Doop 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 doop. Oh, that's not good. ECW has left the session. That is not good at all. So the stream's up, the chat's up, we're all good to go. Fantastic. Well, hello and welcome everyone to the 13th round of the RS2 Spec Esports. It's time for the Japanese Grand Prix here at Suzuka International Racing Course, a 5.81 kilometer, 18 turn racetrack designed and built by a joint effort between the Honda Motor Company and Dutch architect John Hugenholz. It was designed to be a testing facility for the Honda Motor Company to show off their latest and greatest models of vehicles. But this track gained so much popularity that it's become, probably unarguably, the premier racetrack in all of Japan. It's an old-fashioned but brutal racetrack. You're not greeted with tarmac if you run off the racing surface. Ooh, that's not good, as the Stone Tail has left the session. You're greeted with grass and gravel, and Formula One cars don't like grass and gravel. So if you make a mistake here, the track well and truly lets you know about it in a fashion where you're sort of escorted into a barrier, and that's even worse for your car, as many drivers would know. But this track is a fantastic driver's circuit. It's got great flow. Difficult to pass, many would say, and it is true, it is very difficult to pass. Probably the most prominent overtaking spot on the entire racetrack is probably turn 1 after the long DRS zone. On the pit straight, that is the only DRS zone, I might add. But you also have a slight chance maybe at the hairpin at turn 11, nicknamed the Kobayashi corner after his performance at the 2012 Japanese Grand Prix, I think it was. But to give you a guided tour of the circuit, we're right on board with Tom in the McLaren. Have a look at this fantastic racetrack. Down the incredibly long pit straightaway, heading towards turn 1, which is taken flat out in these cars. Just after the inside curb ends, he brakes for turn 2, negotiates it well. On this short straightaway into turn 3, now turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, avoiding the inside curves for the most part because they do unstable. Ooh, they do that. They they get rid of all stability that the car has, and the car rotates like that, and you have to try and catch it as soon as it loses stability. Fortunately, Tom was able to do that, but he invalidated at the first Degner, demonstrating the brutality of this racetrack, how much this track demands of you. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend neither the Pacific Series Tier 1 race or the America Series race, so I haven't seen what this track is like in terms of recent past with these Formula 1 cars. A lot of drivers on the soft compound tyre, though. I do have in front of me that the soft tyre can last roughly about 11 laps and the mediums can last 17. And I think that will make it to the end of the race as well. So I think the strategy around here is a fairly straightforward soft to medium. Though drivers may want to try and go with perhaps the alternate strategy, mediums to softs. Trying to go long in the first stint as Joel comes across Yarrow. I believe that's a fill-in for this race. I'm not 100% sure. They're coming through the Degner curves and again invalidating, this time at the exit of the first Degner. Incredibly easy to do. I've done it on many occasions. Will anyone be able to set a legal lap? Well, at the moment it's a no. Now we have one. Isaac Kush, 1 minute 25.543. Man who is second in the championship, sets the benchmark time for everyone to beat. Ooh, his Plevs a bit unstable there through turn 7. Now the Degners. Finally, someone gets it right. Well, I'm looking at them at least. Underneath the overpass, as Leo sets a lap time as well at 25.8 around Kobayashi corner, turn 11. Then into 200R, flat out right-hander. That chicane there on the inside, that's what the motorcycles use when they come here. Then into spoon curve, a very famous left-hander, double apex left-hander. Turns 13 and 14. Then a slight dip on this straightaway, heading towards one of the most famous left-handers in all of motorsport, 130R. Taken completely flat out in these cars at 314 kilometers an hour for plebs. Into the chicane, a heavy braking zone, second gear, short shifts to third, fourth gear, fifth gear, around the final corner that doesn't have the infamous bump, and sets a 1 minute 26.543, exactly 1 second off Isaac Kush at the moment, as ACW leaves the session again. This is going to be a bit troubling for ACW because he is in a sort of important championship scenario here at Suzuka. I'll tell you what, with about 12 minutes left, it's probably best to talk about the championship scenario. ACW is leading on 236 points. Pretty much the only person that can challenge the Alfa Romeo driver is Isaac Kush, who is currently sitting on pole position on 197 points, 39 behind ACW. It's quite a tall mountain to climb for the Red Bull driver, but it's not impossible. With 3 rounds remaining, including this one, it's quite possible to close in that 39-point gap. However, it's, like I said, a very tall mountain to climb, and ACW is no slouch. And mathematically speaking, ACW can wrap up the Drivers' Championship here at Suzuka if, and this is for absolute certainty, ACW outscores Isaac by 14 points. And it's without a doubt, without any shadow of doubt, ACW will be Drivers' Champion for RS2. At the moment, ACW is having connection difficulties. Hopefully he'll be able to resolve those difficulties before the end of qualifying. As we see here, the Stone Towel managed to successfully rejoin the session. In fact, he's on a flying lap, coming around 130R, very similar speed to what Plebs was doing. So from the looks of things, Plebs and the Stone Towel have very similar setups. Rounding the final corner, hugging the right hand side, sets at 27.3, currently the slowest, but not a bad lap time at all. Currently about 1.8 seconds off the pace of pole position. Still a lot of time left in the session though. A lot of time for improvement. Wogboy crosses the line, goes 6th quickest with a 26.705. On the medium tyre as well, that's a very respectable lap time. KD on a flying lap, the American coming through the first sector. There is a Red Bull in front. We'll see who it is in just a moment. It's Aiden, the Scotsman, getting out of the way. First sector done for KD. Comes through the Degner curves quite nicely. Underneath the overpass and towards the hairpin, there's a bit of traffic in front, consisting of a Ferrari and a Williams. That must be Rhythms and the Gaming Wayfarers. ACW has rejoined the session. Can he stay in the session? Try and set some sort of lap time. Go and have a look at the Wayfarer and Rhythms in a moment. They're both on out laps, so they're getting ready to set flying laps. And Joel is on one as well. He's coming towards the hairpin, turn 11. See there, the turquoise green dot going around the hairpin there on the mini-map. Oh, as Rhythms gets out of the way. Exits the chicane. Rounds the final corner. Crosses the line to set a 1 minute 26.667. Goes 6th quickest. If only that was a 126.666, because that would mean he would be in P6 with a 26.666. Doesn't that just sound lovely? But no, he's 1,000th too high. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Rhythms exiting turn 7. Again, we have this silly yellow flag scenario going on. This has been a common thing to see in past races on F1 2020. Just seeing these random yellow flags just pop up on the racetrack when they're not supposed to come out. Those ones are genuine. Those are ones for cars slowing down and getting out of the way. See what the gaming wafer is up to. Exiting spoon curve sideways. Catches it though. Whew. Very, very lucky he managed to catch that. It could have been the end of the session there for the gaming wafer, but no, he is still going. Rhythms on a flying lap. Coming around 130R. A bit slower compared to KD and Plebs. Only 310 kilometers an hour at entry. Takes the chicane quite nicely, hugs the right hand side. The German will cross the line to set a 26.456. Goes to P5 on the leaderboard with 7 minutes to go. Isaac Kush has just bettered his previous best. 1 minute 25.426. 4/10 quicker than Leo in P2, who was bailed out from a flying lap, I believe. Tom has invalidated as well. Now, the 4 drivers that have not yet set a lap time, they do have to be careful. You can see the flying lap around here is just under 90 seconds long. So the out lap and the in lap around here are also quite long. So you have to keep a close eye on that timer. You have to keep a very, very close eye on the timer. ACW on a flying lap, our championship leader. Ooh, a bit of lag there, a bit more lag. There's a car in front, a Mercedes-Benz. We'll see who that is in just a moment. It's Yaro, the Dutchman, who is currently 3rd on the table. Oh, I can't tell how much of that is lag and how much of that is just ACW lighting the rears up. Deary me. From that onboard, he missed the apex of the hairpin there by a couple of meters. Hasn't been the cleanest of laps. Through spoon curve, 5th gear, 6th gear. Now down this long straightaway towards 130R. What's the speedo climb? See what he hits before the beginning of the corner. So in the middle of Rhythms and Plebs there, about 312 kilometers an hour. Those are just subtle differences in the wing, providing slight differences in speed. Crossing the line, goes 2nd quickest. 1 minute 25.826 with the pressure on him as well. That's a pretty damn fine lap time, considering the scenario. Still 4/10 off Isaac Kush. Joel coming around 200R. He has a racing point in front of him. That has to be KD. Prezzo, the Stone Towel, is in the pits. And I think that was just Rage who jumped up. It must have been. P4 for the Swede. 1 minute 25.987. Rounding turn 15. 130R. Through the chicane. Takes the curbs nicely. 4th gear on the exit. 5th gear. And going into the pits. Very last minute, but going in. So, is he going to just start last then, or what's the plan? You don't have a lot of time left, not a lot of time. ACW, I believe, is on an in-lap. Has to be. Running low on fuel. I don't think ACW will be doing any more laps in this session. I think the same goes with Rage. KD on a flying lap though. Rounding the hairpin, 3rd gear. Not using 2nd. See, he maximizes traction at the exit of the hairpin. Very critical, considering 200R's taken completely flat out. Exiting spoon curve. See what Sector 2 says. Has KD improved? He hasn't. 6/600ths of a second down. He's going to send it into the chicane, utilizing every millimeter of track, and too much there. He took a gamble by sending it into the chicane. It hasn't worked out, unfortunately. And I think that will be session over for KD. Drivers are going to be pouring out of the pits here too, and that's Tom on a flying lap. Who's that car in front? It's a Mercedes, it's Joel. Ooh, as Wogboy dives out of the way. He's on medium tyres. I can understand why he's trying to get out of the way. He doesn't want to hold up anybody who might be on the soft tyre, because he'll just get eaten alive by them. Oh, we're going to have some Monza shenanigans here. Position we need to give one another. This is going to... Oh, that's Tom. Tom has made some sort of error on his flying lap. And I think he's trying to get out of the way. He is. He's going to let Joel through. Luckily, he has enough time left in the session, and it appears he has enough fuel to do another lap. So, it shouldn't hurt him too much. And you can see Wogboy going to the end of this train. He knows he's on the medium tyre. He's going to be slower compared to the cars in front of him. So he's just trying to find some sort of space to try and set his lap on these tyres. See him warming them up now. We'll go to the front of the train. I believe that's Joel. So, just under a minute left. Drivers are now setting their final flying laps in this qualifying session here at Suzuka. Joel yet to set a lap time. If he doesn't set one, he'll be starting from P16. From plumb last. Exits turn 2. Towards the high-speed S's. Takes them quite nicely. See, they're modulating the brake and the throttle just very slightly. Just trying to keep the car stable. Through the first deck now, into the second. Underneath the overpass. And towards the hairpin. This has been a very clean lap from the Brett at the moment. Looking very solid. Coming up to the spoon curve. Slams it down to 5th. Modulates the throttle down to 4th. Modulates the throttle again and then goes to full throttle right on the exit. Into 130R. Apparently purple to the second sector. We'll have to wait and see though. What's this time going to be like? Through the chicane. Negotiates it very nicely. Rounding the final corner. Joel sets a 1 minute 26.417. That's a very fine lap time considering he didn't set one at all in this entire session. The pressure was definitely on. Tom has done a magnificent lap in the McLaren, going second quickest. I believe Rage has just set a lap time. No, it must have been his teammate, the Gaming Wafer, 8th quickest. See what Alex Parto is up to, currently P6, now P7, back to P6. Takes it away from Rhythms. ACW cannot improve position, stays 3rd fastest. The championship leader will start on the 2nd row. His only championship rival will start on pole position here in Japan. Isaac Kush on pole with a 1 minute 25.426. Bit under 2.5 tenths clear of this man, Tom. With a great lap time there from the McLaren driver right at the end. Bowed out of his first flying lap, made it count on the second though. You can see they're just under 2.5 tenths. 3 tenths separating the top three, with ACW in third, Leo in fourth, Rage in P5, Alex Pato in P6, Rhythms in P7, Yarrow in P8, the Gaming Wafer P9, and Joel rounds out the top 10. 1 second separates the top 10 here for tonight's race. Plebs P11, Wogboy P12, KD 13th, Aiden 14th, Stonetal in 15th, and Jack Plays 16th in the Haas. Be interesting to see what these drivers do outside the top 10. What they decide to do in terms of strategy. Well, actually, I haven't even factored in the consideration it might be a wet weather race. Let's have a look. Well, it's definitely overcast. There may be a chance for some wet weather. It's definitely possible here at Suzuka. And this track is already incredibly difficult in the dry. You can imagine how brutal it is in the wet. And it becomes that much more difficult to pass as well. So if it does rain, it may turn into quite the dreary race. You can see there in the bottom right of screen, just, I think that's a Renault? No, it's a Mercedes jumping around there. I thought that might have been a Renault, but no, it's a Mercedes-Benz. I saw that jumping around there. Anyway. Drivers have decided what to go with in terms of strategy. We're just letting the session counter count down to 0. And we can get a look ourselves what everyone has decided to do. We know the top 10 will be starting on the soft compound tyre. What about everyone else? Interesting. It's actually an even mix outside the top 10 in terms of who starts on what. In P11, it's Plevs on the soft compound tyre. Then it's Wogboy in P12 on the mediums, KD in 13th on the softs, Aiden in 14th on the mediums, the Stone Towel in 15th on the softs, Jack Plays at the back of the field on the mediums. It is a 50-50 split for those 6 drivers outside the top 10. Now for those soft runners, they want to keep up with the top 10, make positions early, make the most of this first stint. But those medium runners, they want to run long. They need to not break their front wing. Incredibly important. It's important for the soft runners as well, but it's even more so for the medium runners. They have the hard tyre to fall back on, but it's not a great tyre to fall back on. And it's raining! And it's raining already! Here in Suzuka, you can see on the halo, on the car, it is starting to spit. Oh, the medium runners, what have they done? Well, it seems the weatherman in those respective teams, they have royally screwed up here. You do not want to be on the medium tyre in these sort of conditions. You want to be on the grippiest tyre available because of how tricky the conditions can be, because of how tricky it can be to control the car. Oh. Okay. Well, I queried to whether or not the rain would come, and it has already on the formation lap. On the formation lap. I don't think I've ever seen this in my commentary career, where I've seen it start to rain already. Oh, as Wogboy desperately trying to warm up his tyres, he's now put a whole heap of grass on them. That won't do him any good. But you can understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to get as much temperature as he can find into those tyres, because he's going to be a sitting duck. We'll just be waiting on Jack, I believe, to line up into his spot. And Aiden, he's disconnected from the session. Hopefully he'll be able to rejoin soon. But here we go in Suzuka. Everyone's lined up. Everyone's ready to race. We have 5 red lights. And it's lights out. And away we go. Everyone converts well. You can see drivers scrambling all over the circuit to try and find position. But it's Isaac Kush who would lead the field through turns 1 and 2. Towards the high-speed S's, a Williams running wide. A few drivers scrapping for position. Yara and the Gaming Wafer try. They saw themselves out in contact between Wafer and Plebs. Fortunately, it hasn't resulted in anything major, other than just a few minor heart attacks here and there for those drivers involved in that incident. And Jack Plays has a missing end plate. He's involved with something on the first lap. Is it continuing to rain? No, it's actually stopped spitting, has it? It has stopped spitting. It started to spit on the floor. No, it's back. It is back. And just looking at those halos, there was absolutely no rain on them whatsoever. Now it's back. Interesting. Gap between first and second place is already 1.1 seconds. Izzat has bolted. And some of us may know, when it starts to get a bit damp, Izzat Kush just rises to the occasion. Fantastic wet weather driver. Oh, and that's Yaro. Something's happened to the Dutchman. He has spun in a very different place, as we have the typical lap 2 glitch. You could see there, the Mercedes, it was coming back onto the racetrack, sort of at the inside of turn 16. The right-hander into the chicane. How do you end up there, of all places? That's a fascinating place to end up. Hopefully the leaderboard will sort itself out after the first sector, but Izzat has just put the hammer down, flew away. Tom's not giving up though. The gap hasn't increased anymore. It's about 1.1 still. ACW has lost a bit of time to the McLaren. Heading towards Spoon. But it's good to see everyone still running, everyone behaving themselves. Oh, hang on. Wogboy running out wide. He's side by side with KD. Right on board with the Stone Tower. This will be a fascinating spot to watch. And Stone Tower's going for a move here down the inside into 130R. Wogboy doesn't put up a fight. He falls back to 13th place, probably regretting the choice going on to the medium compound tyre. Rounding the final corner that used to have the infamous bump back on F1 2019 and previous games. Where about halfway through this around the final corner, you would find this mysterious hump that would really unsettle the car. And if you weren't using traction control, it was an absolute nightmare to go through. Fortunately, they have removed that. Ooh, I think that might be a warning there for Tom. Track is getting more and more damp. These guys on the soft tyre, they'll be loving it compared to the medium runners. But I imagine for a little while at least we won't see a great deal of action, purely because of the conditions. Oh, hang on, Rage. Oh, and Alex makes contact with the Swede, and there goes Rhythms into 5th place, Plebs into 6th. Rage made a mistake there by himself, and there goes Plebs. No, sorry. No, yes, actually, Plebs around the outside at 130R. That was ballsy. But we saw Rage make a mistake by himself. Alex is kind of trapped. Had nowhere really to go. Oh, it's Joel pits. Mercedes driver pits. Rhythms round the outside at turn 1. He hangs it there. And he keeps P5 at turn 2. A great move. A great reply to Plevs' move around the outside of 130R. And Joel onto the intermediates already. This is a big brain stop from Mercedes. Let's actually see whether or not it's big brain or little brain. Because the track, there's no spray coming up from the tyres at the moment. See if it works out for him. It's a gamble. We'll see if it works out. These three very close together. That is Yarrow. Just bringing out a brief yellow flag. Tom, a penalty, 3 seconds. You can see these three very close together. Tom running wide. Leo on the back of ACW. Looks down the inside. ACW covers around the outside then. Oh, tight squeeze there between ACW and Leo. Into the chicane. Oh, Tom has a massive slide. Here comes ACW. This should be an easy overtake here for the Alfa Romeo driver, and is an easy overtake. And that is the gaming wafer. Oh, as Joel has retired and the safety car is deployed. What on earth is happening? So we saw the gaming wafer make a mistake at the final turn. That was the sort of light blue dot that was sitting just before pit entry. Just sitting there stationary. Joel has crashed out at 200R onto a new set of soft compound tyres and a front wing change. Intermediate tyres have been put on Yarrow's car. Oh my goodness me, what a series of events that was. Dearie me. Just incident after incident after incident. So what do the leaders do? Well, it's still raining. Do they stay on the soft tyres? Do they take the gamble? Pit for intermediates? Let's find out. Keep our eyes on Izzat, our race leader. Even on fuel, as you can see, the yellow fuel icon means that Izzat is running dead even on fuel. Maybe slightly under even. What are we going to do? Pit? Not pit. ACW is going to pit. Tom's going to pit. Leo is going to pit. Plebs is going to stay out. Same with Rhythms. Alex is going in. That's probably big brain from AlphaTauri there. Have one car stay out and one car go in. That way you make the best of it. One car is going to come out on top at the end of that. It's either going to be Plebs or Alex. There goes Alex out of the pits. It's going to be a double stack for Racing Point. Both cars onto the intermediate tyre. Aiden's AI stays out. That is a big deal. The AI stays out. So the game itself believes it's not time for the Inters just yet. But it may be when the safety car ends. Going to be spending about 2 laps on the safety car, so who knows? Maybe it will change to intermediate conditions within that sort of time. But as of right now, it is not intermediate conditions according to the game. If it was, the AI would have pit. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I love these sort of races when you got strategy that keeps you on your toes. You got drivers on the slick tyre, 3 of them on softs. One of them on a newer set of softs compared to the other 2. See, Izzat and Rhythms, both of them qualified inside the top 10 if I recall correctly. Rhythms started P7, so yes, both of them started inside the top 10, Izzat and Rhythms. Plebs didn't. He started P11, so he's got slightly fresher rubber compared to the Red Bull and the Ferrari. And then we've got Wogboy. Oh, and in. Is that who gets a 5-second penalty for speeding? It is time to switch. Jeff has just told them to switch. Jeff must have told them to switch, and the AI pits as well. This was a big brain decision from everyone who pitted a lap earlier. Who would have thought? It did change to intermediate conditions under safety car. Oh, it came true. How about that? So ACW is our race leader. Tom in second, Leo in third, Rage in fourth, Alex Parto P5. Now the two racing points are in the top 10. And this has saved Yaro's race. Remember, the Dutchman had a incident at the chicane earlier in this race. He's now in the top 10. And Izzat qualified on pole. Led all of the laps up until this safety car. Decided not to pit. Decided not to pit. Is now in 9th. Plevs in P10. Rhythms in 11th. Wogboy in 12th. Then we got the AI of 8, and then the Gaming Wafer and Jack Plays in 15th place. Just had a huge reset on this race. Oh boy. There's now a fair old shout that ACW could win the Drivers' Championship in this race. And with ACW down in 9th, that may become true. Oh boy. Safety car's in. ACW will control the field. This is one of the problems with Suzuka. You're not given a great deal of time to try and control the field when you're the leader under a safety car restart, because Sector 3 is so incredibly short. So you have to basically crawl through this chicane. You can see Tom, he's just trying to keep up, try and maximize the restart. Here we go. We are back under green flag racing here at Suzuka. Lap 8 of 27 has begun. You can see ACW dumping overtake on the pit straight through turn 1. The McLaren runs very wide at turn 1. Fortunately, he's not out of the race. But typically when you see a car go that wide, there's a fair old chance that they spin out, lose a ton of places, potentially retire the car. Basically everyone has to dial themselves back. They have nowhere near as much grip as what they had a few laps ago. They sort of have to relearn everything. It's going to be a tough time for a lot of these guys. Down the inside is that into P7. Stone Tail tries to fight, can't hang on though. Midfield heading around Spoon Curve now. Wogboy and Rhythms having a scrap. Gaming Wafer goes too deep. Rounds the outside. He's still there. I'll give it to him. To still hang it there even on the marbles, that's not easy to do. Tom all over the back of ACW. Oh, and that's the Stone Towel dropping a whole heap of positions. Dropping even more positions. Now down in 14th. Through the high speed S's in the first sector. Drivers tiptoeing. See there the telemetry just constantly adjusting the throttle. rounding the Degner curves. Tom is keeping a bit of company there for ACW, not letting him go. Gap has increased a little bit between P2 and 3. Gap has increased a little bit as well between P3 and 4. Is that now in P6? He must have got past KD at some stage. As I said before, Izzat is quite a capable driver in the wet. So I remember seeing a fantastic wet weather drive at Paul Ricard, I think in F1 2019, if I remember correctly. It might have been F1 2020. Between Izzat and ACW was fantastic to watch. Just to see how top quality drivers operate in the wet. Down the inside, very brave there. Pulls it up as well into 5th place. Digging deep here, Izzat. Has to claw back a lot of ground. It looks like they're up for the fight. Ooh, as Rage almost went onto the grass there. The entry to turn 3. Now people are just trying to find a bit of track to race on. Try and find their groove. Oh, and Tom had got past ACW as well. Something I didn't notice on the leaderboard. Can Tom pull away? I had to say the Brick looked quicker than ACW. Even behind, stuck in the dirty air. See the gap increase to over a second now. Exiting Spoon. Plebs and Yarrow exchanging positions there. That's for P8. Gap about 1 second. So, yeah, I think Tom lightning quick at the moment in these conditions compared to ACW. Gap opens up a bit more. Now we begin lap 11 of 27 here at Suzuka. Is that on the back of Rage, heading towards turn 1. Where do you go for a move here? Stuck right in behind the gearbox of the Swede. Gently on the throttle. Oh, I dare not touch that curb even in the dry. I don't know why Izzat touched that. You could see there the car got very unstable. Oh, I didn't even touch the curb at the inside of turn 7, dearie me. Izzat very much on the edge of control. Lost a fair amount of time. Needs to regather themselves and try and... Oh, dearie me, locking up through the hairpin. Yeah, gather themselves up. Try and set those consistent times again. Perhaps Izzat might be pushing a bit too hard to try and get past Rage. Wog Boy getting past Yarrow and Rhythm. Side by side, Rhythm spins, half spins. Oh, and somehow the Williams misses the Ferrari. Oh, poor Rolex board. Don't worry, Rolex board. Rhythms didn't mean it. He just had nowhere else to go. And Izzat Kush has overtaken Rage at the chicane as well. We saw Izzat do a similar move on Alex Pato for P5. Now into 4th. Next target is Leo. Oh, and that's the Gaming Wafer, I think it is. Going straight on at the chicane. Here comes the Stone Towel. Overtakes him. But Wafer sits back in the slipstream, using overtake as well. Dumping it, in fact. They're going to go side by side into turn 1. Prezzo around the outside, hangs it there as well, but runs wide at turn 2, but keeps the position. stays in P12, a nice little exchange between those two. But Tom starting to incrementally pull away from ACW just little by little. Gap is 1.3 seconds. Leo is there or thereabouts. Izzat is closing in. Ooh, as Rage makes a bit of a mistake. Plev's getting close to KD. 0.6 of a second separating the two, exiting Spoon Curve. Down the long straightaway. Plevs doesn't bother to use any sort of overtake. Neither does KD. Gap has increased quite a bit actually, almost 0.3 on that straight. Seems that Plevs has made adjustments to his front wing to get more downforce in these tricky conditions. Perhaps KD hasn't done the same thing. Look at that. Within a lap, Izzat is on the back of Leo. Oh boy. This is some comeback drive from the Singaporean through the first sector. Up and around turn 7. Dunlop curve. Quite a tricky corner. But everyone gets through nicely. Around the Degners. And underneath the overpass. Into the hairpin. Kobayashi corner. Locking up. But Izzat keeps up the momentum. Closing the gap. Rounding 200R. A bit squirrely there. But keeps the gap at about half a second. Coming around Spoon Curve. Exiting it now, down the long straightaway. Uses overtake here, right on board. Because I reckon Izzat's going to have a go at the chicane. We saw it with Alex. Probably did the same thing with Rage. Is it going to be an almighty send? No, Leo, he's on top of it. Defends the inside at the chicane. But there's another opportunity at turn 1. Uses overtake, sits in the slipstream. Leo is also using overtake, defends. Leo wants to hang on to P3. Rounding turn 2 now. And Leo very much on top of his game at the moment. Ooh, onto the grass. That's not the place where you want to be. See what everyone else is up to. Plev's gap is still about 0.6, so maybe. Oh, look at that! Closes in massively at the exit of turn 7. Exiting the second Degner. So it suggests to me that Plevs has made changes to his front wing, for sure. But as a result, he's compromised his straight line speed, and KD can just pull away. We'll see it on the back, well, I guess back straightaway of sorts. We'll see it on the straightaway before 130 up. So keep an eye on that gap, about half a second. Exiting Spoon. See how much that gap opens up. Oh well, Plebs is using overtake here. KD is as well, as Yaro gets a penalty. See the gap about 0.6 of a second. And I reckon they both used about the same amount of overtake. So KD pulled away, even though Plebs was behind with the slipstream. KD managed to pull away, as Izzat is in. Serving a 5-second penalty that they got after speeding into the pits onto a new set of intermediate tyres. Suggests to me that it's going to be inters all the way till the checkered flag. The Gaming Wafer doing the same thing as well in 13th place. Now this will put Izzat in clear air. Here comes the Stone Towel. Izzat will get well in front of him. This will put Izzat in clear air for at least a little while until he catches up to rhythms. But Izzat will be driving at 100%. Tom doing a great job leading the way. Look at the gap, 2.9 seconds. ACW in second place. No real answer at the moment for fighting for the lead as... Oh, was that KD who brought out the yellow, I wonder? I saw Plebs go past KD and then KD got passed by Wogboy as well. He was that slow. I wonder if the two made contact or maybe KD made a mistake. I don't... Oh, front wing on the Racing Point looks alright. What about the AlphaTauri of Plebs? Any signs of damage? Not really. So maybe KD made a mistake and allowed Plebs to go past. It also allowed Wogboy to go past. But you can see the gaps are now pretty big. Gaps are pretty damn big. But this is what you get with wet weather racing. It looks like it's getting heavier. Now, this may be a problem for Izzat. It might. If it continues to get worse and worse and worse, there may be a need to go onto the wet weather tyre. In which case, Izzat has just done an extra stop. Because as soon as it goes to full wet conditions, you need to get onto the full wet tyre. Otherwise, you're basically a sitting duck on the Inter in full wet conditions. So, just a little thing that I can see from the racetrack itself. It does look like the rain's getting heavier. And we might go to full wet conditions. We'll have to wait and see. Gap is closing in between the two teammates and Alex just lets Plebs by. Doesn't want to hold up his teammate. And Tom's in. Race leader. Same with ACW. Now what do they pit for? What's the tyre? It's the full wet tyre for Tom. What about ACW? Let's not just pull the trigger just yet. What's ACW going for? The full wet tyre. What about Leo? The full wet tyre. Has Izzat Kush just blown any chance for a race win here? Everyone's in for wets. Izzat pitted earlier for the Inter has come out in P6. That is effective P3. But they will need to make a pit stop for the full wet. Oh god, the commentator's curse is working wonders tonight. I said at the beginning of the race, where it looked overcast, there might be a chance for wet weather, you never know. And it starts to rain on the formation lap. And then when the safety car comes out, I say, there might be a chance for the track to go from dry conditions to intermediate conditions. And it did that. Then I start talking about Izzat pitting for another set of intermediates, and me pointing out the fact that it started to rain quite a bit more. They may need to go into the full wet. And that exactly happened. Oh dearie me. Well, there we go. This is going to hurt Izzat quite a bit. Gap has already increased to 4 seconds as Plebs goes in. Alex stays out another lap. It is going to be a set of wet weather tyres for Plebs. Out he goes. Unbelievable. Izzat's going to fight this out from the looks of things. Gap is steadily increasing, but I guess he knows if he pits, and it basically removes any chance of a solid result. Yaro has retired from the session in the pit lane, from the looks of things. Mercedes driver has had enough. Unbelievable. I did not see this coming. Oh, wow. How about that? Now what to look at? That's the tricky bit in wet weather conditions. Because it's so spread out, very difficult to look at almost anything, to know where to look. This is the closest battle on track between Jack and KD. Gap is increasing still between ACW and Izzat as well. Look at that, now 4.3 seconds as Alex pits. Only one driver left on the intermediate tyre, and that's Izzat. Oh dear. Gap closes up a bit more between Katie and Jack. Now overtaking was hard in the intermediate conditions. Becomes about 10 times harder in the wet. You have even less traction to play with. Oh, coming around turn 1. Oh, and KD gets a penalty there, and he runs wide through turn 2 as well. Loses a whole heap of time. Plebs closing a little bit on rage as well. Underneath the overpass. Now where can you look? Here at the hairpin, potential overtaking spot for sure. But you need a good run out of the Degner curves. You need to be close enough as well. Because sending it in these sort of conditions is going to be very difficult to pull it up. Most likely result in contact as well. Exiting Spoon towards 130R. The potential overtaking spot. But again, Plebs not close enough to try and make it work, though very deep on the brakes compared to Rage. Turn 1 is probably the final place where you can make, well actually the first place where you can make an overtake, and Izzat bites the bullet and goes onto the wet compound tyre. Where will the Singaporean come out? There goes Jack. Will KD get past as well? Certainly. What about Rhythms, the German? He will as well. It's P11 for Izzat. With 8 laps to go, Izzat needs to get a move on. Tom still leading the way, but with a 3-second time penalty? Yes, 3 seconds. So, even with the penalty, Tom looks like he's going to take the win. Unless, of course, he makes a mistake at some stage or gets another penalty. ACW looking comfortable in second, has a big margin over Leo, 8.2 seconds. And there's Rage and Plevs. Plevs looking to try and overtake Rage for 4th place. Very close. Just needs to try and get a little bit closer. Then we got Wogboy P6, Alex Parto in P7, the 2 AlphaTauri cars looking very solid. And it's Jack Plays in P8, KD in 9th with a penalty. There's Rhythms, and here comes Izzat. We saw The Red Bull driver make moves at the chicane. We might see one here. Using overtake, looking down the inside, a big send. And pulls it up. Blocks the inside line for the left-hander to make sure Rhythms can't get the switch back. And into P10. I imagine Izzat is not going to muck around here. They need to get their head down, make up as many positions as they can to keep the championship fight alive. Remember, if ACW outscores Izzat by 14 points, it's a guaranteed championship. Anything less than that, then there are scenarios where Izzat can still win the Drivers' Championship. So 14 points or more, it's going to Izzat. Oh, sorry, it's going to ACW. Dear me. Keep an eye on these two. Can Plev find a way past? Got plenty of overtake to use. So does Rage. Even more so, actually. Both drivers using overtake. Plevs is running out of laps. Oh, lovely aerial shot here, 130R. Oh, that's fantastic. Seeing the rain and the spray. Oh, it's magnificent. Oh, and Rage just shoots himself in the foot, doesn't he? 3-second time penalty. That is a big oof for the Sweden. For the Swedish driver. Dear me. Is that with a penalty now? KD has one. So these two are on even ground. Is that down the inside? Oh! Millimeters away from the gearbox of that racing point. Somehow they don't make contact. That was awfully close. I don't think Izzat will be able to find a way past here. Just needs to be patient. Perhaps go for a move at the hairpin. That is your next realistic shot for an overtake. See what happens here. Using overtake. Is it going to be a send? It is! Blocking up, going deep. KD gets the switch back. It was an almighty send, and it doesn't really work out. Oh, but Izzat's close. Not close enough to try and stick the nose down the inside, but might have a look here into Spoon. Doesn't commit to the move, but KD misses the apex slightly. Oh, Izzat looking incredibly aggressive. Here we go towards 130R. KD defends the inside line. They might go side by side through here. Oh, very close. Oh, makes contact at the entry there. Izzat loses a position as well, down to 11th. And Izzat's going into the pits. He's flying into the pits. He's retiring from the race. Unbelievable. That little incident there with KD. You just pull the pin. All that ACW now needs to do is not make any mistakes and stay there in second. If ACW can see the checkered flag in this position, it's a championship. After this race, we only have 2 rounds left. The gap as of right now is 39 points. The second place, I believe that is 20 points, if I remember correctly. I think for the race winner, I'll double check that. See, with Race Spec, they don't quite use the same point system as Formula 1. They use a similar point system used in MotoGP. So yes, it's 20 points for second. This could be a championship. but he needs to make it. As of right now, he needs to finish 3rd place or higher. Needs to finish on the podium. Basically, he's got a massive gap to Leo, so there is absolutely no need to push. There is no need. Suzuka, it's quite renowned for deciding championships. It's decided many in real life Formula One. It used to be a season finale location. It's now moved to the dreadful circuit of Yas Marina in real life. Down the inside into Degner 1. Oh, I'm spinning! Plans he didn't need to make the move there. He decided to go for it, and it's paid. Oh dear. It's cost him massively. Oh, it's paid. He's paid the price for it. He didn't need to go for that move down the inside. He just made contact there with Rage. And you typically see that sort of thing as well. Front wheel, side pod contact. I'm sure a lot of people watching this have played F1 2020. When you make front wheel and side pod contact, the car that makes contact with the front wheel, you just get spun. And there's no saving it either. You just get spun. Oh. Dearie me. How about that? How about that? A lot of drama going on. I thought with the wet weather conditions this would be a fairly boring race. I've been wrong. I am very wrong. This has not been boring. This has been some very dramatic stuff here at Suzuka. Oh, Rage has a bit of a moment there. And it's not over. ACW, he's just trundling around the racetrack, not pushing too hard. Hasn't closed in on Tom. Ooh, bit laggy there. Tom out in front, commanding this race. Does have a penalty. 3 seconds worth, as you can see there. Same with Rage, KD, and the Gaming Wafer. They all have 3-second time penalties. But with the gaps as they are, Tom can hang on for the win. Driven very well, the McLaren driver. Just needs to hang on for 2 more laps. And it would be a well-deserved victory. It's like the 1 and 2 yellow flags. That is Stone Towel. Oh, it is. He ended up in the wall there ever so briefly at the second Degner. Been overtaken by the Gaming Wafer. Ooh. Be careful, Tal. Your tyres will be all over the shop. Exiting the second Degner. Gap is 3.3 seconds. See, they're short shifting all the way up to 5th gear there. That's how awkward it is in these wet conditions. You have to be so gentle with the car. Plevs a penalty. That's now 6 seconds, I think, next to his name. He might lose out to Jack Plays if he's not careful. Tell you what, with a couple laps to go, we'll have a look at the position change as well. Well, it's looking like either Wogboy or Jack Plays will be given driver of the day. See, Jack starting from plumb last, has made no mistakes. He did get damage early on though, I remember that. on the first lap, had end plate damage. He's now in 8th place inside the top 10. Wogboy kept his nose out of trouble, currently P5, making up 7 positions. So either one of those two will be given driver of the day. But out in front, Tom has got a healthy 3.7 second margin that hasn't closed. It hasn't opened up either. Just needs to get around for about half a lap. Oh, a bit skatey there. The pressure's on. Gap's opened up a bit more. It's over 4 seconds. This man might not be winning tonight's race, but he'll be winning something a hell of a lot bigger. Driven superbly throughout this season. Don't think he was expecting at the start of this round that he could wrap up the championship. Well, that is exactly what he's going to do. Only a few corners remain in this race. Tommy's going to negotiate the chicane for the final time. Gently in 4th gear. He will come around the final corner to see the checkered flag. Tom will win the Japanese Grand Prix, but ACW will become RS2 Drivers Champion for Season 4. Unbelievable. After all that's happened, ACW will manage to secure the championship. Leo in 3rd, Rage in 4th, Wogboy in P5, Alex will cross the line in P6, Plevs in P7, Jack P8 from P16 on the grid. Rhythms will crash at the line as well in 9th, KD P10, and it'll be the Gaming Wafer and the Stone Tower to cross the line as well. What a unbelievable race that was. Congratulations, Tom, on a fine drive in tricky conditions, but congratulations to ACW on a fantastic season, winning the championship with 2 rounds to go. Oh, dear me. Oh, who would have... Wow. That was something. GeForce Wogboy given driver of the day. I knew it would be either Wogboy or Jack Plays. I knew it would either be one of those two. Turned out to be Wogboy according to Codemasters. There's Tom lifting the winner's trophy. ACW finishing 2nd, wrapping up the Drivers' Championship. Leo in a fine 3rd. Another podium for the Haas driver. Actually a pretty solid day for Haas, both of them in the top 10. There we go. Quite the race here at Japan. It resulted in Tom winning with fastest lap as well, so it's a full bag of points for the Brit. ACW in 2nd, Leo 3rd, then it's Rage in P4, Wogboy P5, Alex Pato in P6, Pleb 7th, Jack in 8th, Rhythms in 9th, KD rounds out the top 10. Then we have the Gaming Wafer and the Stone Towel. Aiden couldn't rejoin the session. His AI finished in 13th place. 3 retirements. Is that? Oh boy. Started on pole, then everything went south after the first safety car. Then it's Yarrow in P15, and then Cosjol after his accident at 200R that brought out the first safety car. He was our first retirement from the race. So there we go. With ACW claiming 20 points, his total increases to 59, which makes it mathematically impossible for Izzat to win the championship in RS2. Not the way that Izzat wanted the fight, wanted this championship to resolve itself, but that's what racing is like sometimes. Sometimes you have races that go your way, and sometimes you have races that do the complete opposite, and that is what happened to Izzat tonight. Now typically I show the winner of the race here in the showroom, but I reckon I might go to this one for the sake of the championship. Oh, so there we go. ACW RS2 Drivers Champion. Of course, we still have the constructors to worry about between Alfa Romeo and Red Bull, though with Alfa scoring 20 points more, that gap increases to 80 between Red Bull and Alfa Romeo with 2 rounds remaining. I still think it's mathematically possible for Red Bull to try and clinch the team's championship, though it's going to be a next to impossible task, but mathematically it's possible. Speaking of next round, we go from one legendary circuit in the form of Suzuka to probably the most legendary racetrack on the calendar. Next round, it's a Monaco Grand Prix at Circuit de Monaco. It is a racetrack that's quite divided in the Formula One community in terms of opinion. For those who have followed the sport for a long time, they recognize the track for its historical significance. It's a legendary racetrack in terms of its history, and it's a race that everyone wants to win. The qualifying there as well is quite spectacular, especially when you're seeing high caliber drivers like this lot negotiate a circuit like that. It's always fantastic. But then you've got the other side, and rather understandably so, it's quite a boring racetrack. Racing is next to impossible around Monaco. You got so few overtaking opportunities, and even with those so few overtaking opportunities, it is next to impossible to try and make them stick. So next week it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out, but it's a race that I'm definitely looking forward to. But there we go. Be very interesting to see indeed. But I think that will end round 13 of this championship, and I think that will end this stream. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I've been the Smeg. We'll see you all next week for the Monaco Grand Prix at Circuit de Monaco. Should be a lot of fun. Until then, goodbye.